Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right. Good evening and welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, the president and CEO of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, and award-winning author. Tonight's show is partnered with ADP, the go-to place to better build and manage your business. And of course, we want to welcome everyone to another night of sharing. With us, we have a special guest, Sandy Grigsby. Sandy is a multi-talented individual who has a diverse career journey, starting as a commercial print model and transitioning into a personal brand web designer, brand photographer, and confidence catalyst. Throughout her life, she has struggled with self-image and confidence, but she has managed to overcome these obstacles through decades of hard work and self-discovery. Growing up, Sandy faced bullying, racial discrimination, and control from an overbearing father. She also experienced sexual harassment from both male and female colleagues. Despite these challenges, she continued to push forward and develop her skills and talents. She learned to speak 4 languages: cook, sew, dance, install hardwood floors, race cars, snowboard, build websites, and groom dogs. She competed in beauty pageants, won scholarships, studied abroad, mentored youth, volunteered, and worked as a model, graphic designer, online retailer, and artist. So, as you can see, Sandy is proud of her personal brand and she helps others to do the same. She's an expert in self-image and confidence. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Miss Sandy Grigsby. Hey, Sandy, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it is my pleasure and I'm excited. Like we talked just a few minutes ago before we got started, you have got a full background and I cannot wait to hear about your journey. But before we truly dive into this interview, please tell everybody a little bit more about who Sandy is, who she really is, besides what I've already read. What other things would you like us to know?
I don't know. You kind of spilled the beans on everything. I was like, dang, you know everything. Who am I? I am someone who is a little bit goofy, like a little bit silly. I can make up songs on the fly. If I know the song, I can change the words and make it creative and funky.
Wow.
And I'm someone who loves to laugh, but I have my moody side too. I'm not going to hide it. It's there. But overall, I love what I do. I love helping people really see the best parts of themselves and be able to show it to others. And I like to say I'm pretty funny. I think I'm funny. But, to each of them.
Well, let's see. I think I agree because we've been laughing since we talked. We've talked a few minutes before we got this started. And I'm excited, though, and to learn truly more about your journey. I mean, to read what I just read is pretty deep. And I'm going to take this assumption that everything you have been through has made you, of course, the person that you are today and the reason why you're such a light and you want to help people understand and be comfortable about who they are. So talk a little bit about, we're going to go backwards. I want to understand what you faced as a child and how all this bursted you into the multi-talented person you are today.
Oh, wow. That's a big, this is 30 minutes. We're going to be here for like 5 minutes. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Well, let's start from the very beginning. I was born in Switzerland.
Okay.
My mother is Swiss, and my father is Black American.
Okay.
And he was an American living abroad, met my mom. They fell in love. They got married. And in Switzerland at the time, he was kind of an anomaly. Like, that didn't really exist. And a white woman like my mom, she had like the towhead, platinum blonde hair and hazel eyes and very pale skin. And then there was my dad, right? He kind of looked like JJ from Good Times,
Right.
Like, seriously, I'm not kidding. And so when they were married, the whole entire village came to their wedding. Like, it's insane. And when they had me, the nurses were so excited to see a little black baby. And then I came out and they were like, what is this? because I was not what they had expected.
Oh my goodness.
I was like this light brown, almost white little baby with black hair, jet black, full-headed jet black hair. And they were like, what? So from the beginning in Switzerland, things were good, but they would always say to my mom, oh, you must be the nanny. So she started getting it. Then they decided to move back to the United States, and we moved to California because my parents felt like in the United States at that time, San Francisco Bay Area would be the most like ethnically free place because there was a big melting pot of people. So they felt safer to move there. And the reason for that is they were highly discriminated against for being a biracial couple. They actually were almost killed. Someone ran them off the road when they were driving from Georgia to Texas and tried to kill them. And they actually woke up in different hospitals. Like, it's a crazy story. But that said, I grew up in San Francisco, in the south part of San Francisco, and eventually we moved across the bay to a little town called Fremont. And I was the only kid on the block who had biracial parents. Everyone else in my neighborhood was either a white family or a Persian family or a Japanese family or an Indian family. Like, they were all pure of what they were, and I was the different one. So going to school, it was the same thing. I was the only one that was different. Everyone was either white, Asian, or that's it. We had hardly any black kids either. And I got discriminated against just because of that. So growing up, I was always trying to fit in. I was trying to fit in with the neighbors. You know, I would go to the Indian house and I would try to speak their language and hang out with them and eat their foods and blend in. And it was nonstop. Even at school, I never really fit in. So as I got older, one of the things with my family was I really was obsessed about being a perfectionist because my dad was highly controlling, and he was in the military. He was incredibly intelligent. He was one of the first blacks to go to when they had computer school and they were training them to be engineers and stuff. He was one of the first. So he was highly educated, but he dealt with a lot of discrimination. So he didn't know how to deal with it when it came to working at his career. So he kind of took it out on his family. So he was harsher to me than he should have been. He wasn't so bad with my mom because she was that docile, domesticated Swiss who would like cook for him and clean for him and do everything, right? But he was really hardcore on us. And growing up, it was not an easy environment. And I picked up on his perfectionism, and because he was also a perfectionist. And I was just striving to get him to like me more and to get other people to like me. And it really affected my confidence. And it just impacted me from that point for 20 years moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sad part, and I hate to even have to say this, is that it's not shocking, right? It's sad, but it's not shocking because till this day, we have to hear the same type of stories. And it's not even just from the one side, it's also dealing with in our own communities as well. You know, you're not black enough, you're not this, you're not that. And I always try to ask the question, well, what is that supposed to mean? What does black enough supposed to mean? How are we supposed to act? What are we supposed to look like? Why am I not, considered good enough for you? It's one thing, we're dealing with one side, and now I got to deal with it on the other side. So I definitely understand your journey.
You
Go ahead.
Kimberly, you hit it on the head. And this is actually one thing I failed to mention. My mom's side of the family, she was an only child, and she just had her parents. So when they passed away, I was very young. So it's not like I had the white side of the family to hang out with. It was just my mom and my dad. And my dad's side of the family, they had, there were a total of 8 children. So he had a lot of sisters and brothers. And I started getting discriminated against by my cousins. So I'll never forget, I went to Texas to visit my aunt and my grandma, and one of my cousins had spread rumors that I didn't like black people, which was not even fathomable to me. I'm like, what? Because I didn't see color. I just was, everybody in my neighborhood was mixed, so I was mixed too, right? And I was like, what? And the funniest part is her reasoning was this. She said, because I dyed my hair red, which I don't know if you remember the Feria hair color from like the late 90s. Yeah. Everyone used it. And everyone had that horrible red hair. Do you remember that phase?
Oh my
it was
gosh.
Really, really bad. Anyway, I had done that. And so she went and told my family, oh, Sandy doesn't like black people and she doesn't want to be black because she dyed her hair red. And the craziest part is, at that time, I think I was like 19 or 20, my boyfriend was blacker than any of them. I had the darkest boyfriend ever. And I looked at my family. I was so confused when they were confronting me with this. And we were in Texas, and they were confronting me. And I was like shocked. What are you talking about? And then I just pulled out my phone, and I showed the picture, and they all got quiet.
Wow.
And then
it's that
I just left.
And I think the sadder part about it, this portion of the conversation, is that it's that constant assumption and attitude that, well, all white women want black men, right? So, so when they assumed that you weren't black and thought, oh, well, she's just another white girl, I'm going to use this expression because we hear this all the time. And it's the sadder part of what people don't understand or don't care to realize, that you are still a human being. And at the end of the day, whatever choice you make is your choice. But for them to sit there and just assume it's okay, well, I'm going to beat her down because she's just not black enough for us. And then, and to some people, they don't even care if you do have a black parent, or regardless. But there's so much of this that goes on in our community that, like I said, we're fighting from one side and you're fighting on the other. And then you're in the middle, you're in that middle ground, in that middle space, trying to understand, who am I really? So I want to talk a little bit more here about the journey of your dad, because you just said a few minutes ago that he was a perfectionist and you picked up on that. Oh, and I'm assuming that is the reason why you do all the things that you do. I mean, you had a slew of things that from race car driving and all these other things. So talk about the importance of being
Kimberly,
a perfectionist.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something I've actually never talked about on a podcast. So you get the special, like on a radio show podcast. I've never discussed this, but yes, I had become a perfectionist because I was constantly striving to please him. And, he never told me he loved me. I don't ever remember hearing it growing up. And so I was constantly striving to get him to accept me and to like me for what I was, because everything I did wasn't good enough. My grades weren't good enough. I had gained too much weight, stopped eating. I even won a scholarship, moved to Germany for a year on a full expense government paid scholarship. And as soon as I got home from that year abroad, the first thing he says to me when I walked in the door was, "Whew, you got fat." Oh, okay. And I was like, what? I didn't even know. I hadn't even recognized that I put on weight. I think I gained like 10 pounds. Right. But to him, that was too much. And so it's, it was things like that. So where I'm going with this is that it took me on this constant thing that I was doing to be perfect, which is why I learned how to do all of those things, which is why when I got into university, I graduated number 2, top of my class, magna cum laude, because I was constantly pushing. I was obsessing over my studies and everything because I wanted to be perfect. And what ended up happening was years later, and I'm talking like in my early 40s, I think I was like 39, 40 years old. I ended up going on a journey and discovering that everything that I had done to be so perfect, and when I mean perfect, it was like to attract the perfect partner, to have friends love me, to have people love me, audiences, whatever it was. Everything I had done because I was comparing myself subconsciously to my dad, and I didn't want to end up like him. And even though he was also a perfectionist, I mean, he was a brilliant man. He actually worked for huge corporations, Apple Computer, IBM. I mean, the companies he worked for as an engineer and a tech were insane. But he started his own businesses, and he'd done all these things that is always like never good enough, and he had to be perfect at everything. And what I was subconsciously doing was mimicking, because they say you grow up to be like one of your parents, right?
Yeah.
I absolutely had, minus the abuse that we went through with him. I was the obsessive perfectionist because I was striving to be like him without realizing it. And after I'd gone on this journey, I realized that my biggest fear in life was being a failure, like what I had considered my father to be, because he died when he was 56 years old. Wow. He had pancreatic cancer. He kept changing jobs constantly. He had started multiple companies. Nothing seemed to work. And I considered himself subconsciously as a failure when the reality was he was never a failure. He was always trying and shape-shifting and changing to see, okay, this isn't working, I need to shift. This isn't working, I need to shift. Okay, now this. And I hadn't recognized it as a young person. And it took me until my 40s to have that realization and go, oh my gosh, I'm exactly like my dad in every way, because I keep shifting to get to the right perfect thing. And that's when I had my aha moment. And that's when I found my confidence. I found my self-worth, my self-love, and my life completely changed. That was 5 years ago.
Wow. I mean, that's right there is astonishing. 5 years ago, you had that epiphany.
Yep.
The thing that I'm sitting here listening to, like say, as kids, we all strive to be like one of our parents, right? There's always something that stands out more from one than the other. But when you talked about the word failure, and we all know we've heard this word a million times. Oh, you're a failure for this and that, failure for that. But there's the reality, like you said, it's not even about failing, because you're not failing. Anytime you can stand up and start something new, you can recognize that you have a certain skill set. I'm sitting here, kind of looking at your bio again, and I'm thinking about, you speak 4 languages. You cook, you can sew, you can dance. The thing that really got me was the installed the hardwood floors. Girl, I need to have you come on over here and do some hardwood floors.
Tile work, I'm great at it. Gardening, you name it. But here's the thing. All of that stemmed from this constant need to be accepted and approved and loved.
Right.
Because I didn't have it for myself.
Right.
I was striving to get it from my father. I didn't get it from him. My mother was submissive and docile, so she didn't give it to me in the way that I felt I needed. She actually said, oh, your dad gave you enough love, because he used to pin us down and kiss us, which, by the way, was torture as kids. So I didn't receive it as love. I received it as a punishment. And she didn't see it as that. She saw it as, well, he loves you so much, he can't stop kissing you. And so she didn't give me the affection that I felt that I needed at that, young, tender point in your life. But when I had that epiphany that I was striving to be like him subconsciously, you have to understand, this wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be like my dad. Verbally, I would say to people, oh, I want to be nothing like him. I'm not like him. I'm completely opposite of him. But subconsciously, I was trying to be like him.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Because like you said, you strive to be perfect, and he was perfect. In his mind, that was his goal. So like you said, once you stood back and really looked at the reality that, oh my God, I am him. You are truly him. And the more you tried to push not to be him, the more you became him. So I want to talk a little bit, move forward on how did this work in work environments around other, you talked a little bit about the harassment in the bio about from the male and female colleagues. How did that stem? Because I know everything that you went through, it definitely had to roll over into something else. Talk a little bit about that journey.
Yes. So what happened was, because of the things that I faced of trying to be a perfectionist, and then, my dad was a combination. He was abusive in a combination of ways. He was verbally abusive, like, you are too fat, you aren't smart enough, you're an idiot, what's wrong with you? And then he was physically abusive. So he would slap us, but he would always hit us in places that it would never leave a mark. So like the back of the head, he would pinch us really hard. He would punish us with like sitting on the knees with your nose in the corner and holding your ears for an hour and a half. Just torture, physical torture things. Like, it was bad. Spankings, leather belts, the whole thing. Okay. And when I started working, I was working in Hollywood, and I was actually working for one of the top Black photographers in Los Angeles. He was amazing. And I was super excited to work for him because his talent. I mean, he was working with these clients that were some of the biggest celebrities in Hollywood at the time. And I had become so submissive, similar to my mom. I had become weak. I only wanted to please. So I was overly, yes. I was pretty much a yes, ma'am. Yes, I'll do it. Yes. I didn't speak up because I didn't have any value in myself or self-worth. So whatever I was told to do or asked to do, or even if it was uncomfortable, I either said nothing or accepted it. And that's where the problem arose, because I had no confidence. So when the sexual harassment began at that job, I never said no because I was afraid to say no. Because if I said no to my father, for example, I would get hit, or I would get yelled at or verbally attacked. So in this situation, even though I wasn't being physically like beaten or yelled at, he was always very kind to me. The discomfort that I felt, I had accepted it. And then it took quite a bit for me to actually step up and say something. And I stepped up and said something to his COO. And her response was, I'm going to have a talk with him, which she did. And he ended up laying off for a while, and he flipped from being overly like touchy-feely discomfort, like putting me in awkward situations, like he would straddle me at my desk and make me feel really awkward, to very mean. Then he became verbally abusive, and he'd be like, "You're stupid, and why can't you do this? You're not fast enough." And it was like a switch. So then I went to the COO again, and I said, "Listen, he's now verbally abusive to me, and it's like I can't win either way." And she said, "Well, sweetie, maybe you just need to try a different team." And she hit on me. So it was all because I didn't have the confidence to speak up and say, "Listen, I'm not tolerating this. I should have gone to the police. I should have gotten an attorney. I should have done all of these things." But I didn't hold value enough for myself to actually take action and do that. And this was all in the early 2000s, like 2001, 2002.
Wow.
And I ended up leaving that job, getting into another job with another photographer who was a very, very well-known, famous photographer in Los Angeles again. And he hit on me. And the only way I could make myself feel safe was I quit. But again, I didn't say anything to him. I didn't stand up for myself. I didn't go to any professional help. I just bottled it up, stayed quiet, and went to the next thing. And it ended up ruining relationships for me, because then I would get into romantic relationships where I would tolerate things that I should never have tolerated for the exact same reasons of the fear of the outcome. Well, if I say something, it might be awkward or uncomfortable. And I just kept doing that up until a point where I couldn't tolerate it anymore.
Right.
And once you hit that level of not being able to tolerate something is when you can finally pivot and pull confidence and courage, because you need both of them, out and speak up. And I started doing that in my early 30s, but I still wasn't fully confident. It was like I was still taking abuse in other forms. Maybe it wasn't relationships with romantic partners, but like I would allow women that I was friends with to dominate me and control the situation and be verbally abusive to me. And it just continued for a long time. And then when I finally had that and I had to change, and I went through that journey, and I recognized that it was all because I didn't love myself. I didn't value myself. Everything changed.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. It's like you said, that epiphany, and it sounds like you actually had it more than once, but when it really hit, it dominated you. You finally said, what? I'm just not doing this shit anymore. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Exactly.
And that's where that all the growth that you had. So you were having that growth in your 30s, and then it hit into your 40s, because you were starting to realize that this stuff just isn't right. You knew it was wrong, but like you said, being able to build yourself up to know that I've got to be able to speak about this. I got to be able to do this for myself. And because if you were going to different people, or if you even mentioned or didn't mention it, you didn't feel anybody had your back anyway. So, you had to grow into this. So your steps you took were necessary, but now, you've been there, you're past you're in your 40s, you've blossomed. You've been talking a lot about photography. So I want to hear about the journey of the photography, but also why that photography is what has captured you, and why it's so important for people to understand, how you can relieve yourself, what you see when you're looking at those portraits of people that you may take.
Yeah, of course. So the photography came about, it didn't happen right away, because when I was working for the photographers in Los Angeles, I was actually a web developer, because I got a degree in visual communications, so a fine arts degree. And I was building websites for celebrities, like famous people, like, Carl Lewis and Carmen Electra and people like that. And when I started on my own, I began to freelance with my own company. I started my own company as a freelance artist. And I was working with small businesses like chiropractic offices and, jewelry store owners and things like that. And I would build these beautiful websites, and they would give me these horrible photos. So since my degree of fine arts had photography as a part of it, it wasn't the focus, but it was a little bit of it. Okay. I felt like I could figure out how to take pictures. So one of the things I did have in my back pocket was I started commercial print modeling when I was 18. So I knew what it was like to be a model. I was constantly for big ads, like I was on T-Mobile. You probably if you remember the T-Mobile Sidekick phone, I was considered T-Mobile the T-Mobile's lead person for that. I was on the billboards, I was on, posters, everything.
Oh, wow.
And I was nicknamed at T-Mobile Sidekick Sandy. So I was T-Mobile Sidekick phone model. But things like that. But since I had so much experience being a model and working with these photographers, I had exceptional experience retouching photos. I told my clients, hey, let me just take your picture and if I can make it look good. And that's what I did. I retouched them and made them look incredible. And this is before, all the AI tools to make people look different. We didn't have filters. It wasn't like you could use a filter and make yourself look better. It had to be retouched. And so I ended up getting more and more into photography because first I was doing such a great job retouching to make them look good. And then I figured out that the photography that I was doing wasn't that great. I had to do too much retouching. So I started to improve my photography just with subtle things that I didn't want to retouch. And then eventually I started working with a matchmaking company. And it was one of the number one matchmaking companies in the whole entire world. And I was helping them capture better photos of their clients so they could more easily match their clients.
Oh, wow.
And what I hadn't realized when I got that job was almost all of their clients were executives from major corporations. So I was working with executives at Compass Realty and, huge Apple Computer. Huge companies. And I was taking these executives and having them, pose and be in a way, and I was using my modeling background to pose them and direct them so that they could attract their ideal partner. So one thing I realized though was everyone was like, oh, I need to make, you need to make this person look sexy. They need to be desirable and all these things. And I go, yeah, I can do that. But when the person...
Hello? Oh, I think we lost her for a second there. We'll see if we can get our guest back up and running. So I hope we can get Sandy back on because she's got such a fabulous story here to finish telling. Sandy, if you can hear me, let's try to get this going again. I see that she'll have to pop back on. So we're going to continue to talk this out because her story is just way too fantastic to not. So here we go. We're going to bring her back in. Sandy, are you there?
So sorry. I don't know what
problem.
happened. I wasn't even touching my phone. It just dropped you. Oh my God.
Well, you got to remember
up where I left off. What do you want me to do?
Yeah. Well, you got to remember you're way back. You're in a whole other part of the world, so it's okay. Not a problem. So you were talking to me about the fact that when you were touching up everybody's pictures, and then like I said, people were saying, oh, we need to be more sexy. They need to be able to match. But then you were getting ready to say, the fact is that when the real people come out, what's going to happen?
So here's what happens. When they Googled them, they would find these horrible pictures that they were using for their branding, for their, business websites and other things. And they were so bad. So I convinced my clients, stop focusing on sexy pictures.
Yes.
Focus on branding yourself so you look great if you get Googled. And they go, this is interesting. And it worked. The pictures that I took of people made them look more confident. It made them look more approachable. It made them look gorgeous because they had their natural confidence and radiance come out. And what I was doing was I was drawing their confidence out by reminding them of what they were really great at, their superpower. And once I had done that, I was able to demonstrate how amazing they were. The problem was at that point in time, I was not doing it for myself because I hadn't discovered my own self-love. And that is where my business went, why it became photography, and I became so great at it because I was able to draw these people out. But once I recognized it for myself, it just shifted it to a whole nother level. So now I work with my clients on really helping them understand themselves, fall deeper in love with themselves, own their value and their self-worth, and then convey that to other people through images, video, and other content that they're putting out to the world. So when you understand yourself, you love yourself, and you feel really confident about, okay, I know I'm good at this. This is my job. This is who I am. I feel great. You are a light, a beacon, and people see that and they gravitate towards it and they want it. And you can pretty much persuade anyone into anything when you're truly yourself.
You're absolutely right. And I love what you just said about, the fact that people had to start realizing who they really were. And like you said, having a picture that's like, oh, you look so great. But then when the person does see them, it's like, This is the person. And we see a lot of that today. You know, you're talking about the, you know, people get online, you know, with the new technology, everybody's using technology and they get on Instagram or whatever, and they're putting on this face. And then when they take the face off, you don't even recognize who you're dealing with, because in my opinion, just what you said is that people don't value who they are. They don't love themselves enough to say, this is who I am. And, you know, if I got to put 10 layers of paint on my face for you to see me as beautiful, there's a problem there, you know. And
that's exactly it.
Right. But the key is that it happens continuously. And, you know, we all strive to want to have people see the beauty that we see, but the key is that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. They're not going to see what we see.
Yes,
so
that's exactly right. And you know, when it comes to your image online, I tell my clients, if you're putting filters or you're over photoshopping your images, or you're showing up in a way that really isn't you, your friends are like, that doesn't look like you. Like, you look really uptight or really, you know, serious, and you're not. You're so funny and you're so warm. Then you're actually doing yourself a disservice. Because yes, if let's say you're funny, you have a great sense of humor, you make people laugh, you're really kind, but you're also, you know, a bit serious. If that comes out in the images and someone does not want to work with you, that's good, because you didn't want to work with them either. But the person who's looking for that funny, kind, warm, friendly, but a little bit serious person is going to look at your picture and go, oh my gosh, this feels like the person I want to work with. I feel a connection to them. I'm looking for someone who is like this person. I sure hope that they are how they're coming across. And if you can meet that expectation, you have guaranteed yourself a diehard raving fan and a loyal customer, a loyal fan, friend, follower for life.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Because when you, like you said, when you become who you are and people can see that you are authentic, that's all it takes, is being just you. And we live in a world that still is fake to some degree. You know, everybody has to have this certain look or style, or, you know, I mean, and it's really kind of no different than what we've been talking about throughout this whole conversation about how people see us. You know, just like we were talking earlier, you're not black enough, you're not this, you're not that. There's nobody in this world that's supposed to look alike. There's nobody that's supposed to have, everybody has to have dark skin in order to be considered black, or everybody has to be completely pale because they're right. I mean, there's all these crazy idealistic ideas because it's been put out for years. You know, we've been labeled all our lives, and so people don't know how to walk away from a label. You know, that's how they define who you are, and how, you know, and then we remember with that.
What you just said is exactly right. We've been labeled and people don't know how to define it. But there's an aspect to it that goes even deeper. If you can create friction and you can get people to see something in a way that's going to upset them and it's going to be visceral for them, you have control.
Yes.
So when I see, because I grew up in a melting pot of people, I've lived in so many countries now, I actually kind of lost track. I want to say like 11 countries, like lived, not vacation, but lived.
Right.
And I've been to so many countries. I've experienced cultures that are unbelievable all over the world. And from the Middle East to Asia, to Europe, to South America, I have lived in all of those places, and the United States, of course. And I can tell you that I see a division happening, and it's being fueled by pain. And some people get confused. You go, well, no, it's fear. Fear causes people to do this. No. Fear comes from not wanting to experience pain. But people are so afraid of experiencing pain that they champion things and they lead with their pain. So if you're leading with your pain, you are fueling the division. If you're leading with love, you are now much more open-minded and accepting and bringing people together. Because if you lead with love, you don't see color, you don't see race, you don't see religion, you don't see culture, because everything is beautiful to you.
Amen.
When you lead with pain,
oh my
you
gosh,
make that division.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's what a lot of people in the United States in particular are missing.
Mm-hmm.
They are leading with pain. And one of the examples I like to give, which people get mad about this one, but I don't care. It's funny. The best example is a vegan.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be one, so I'm not
Mm-hmm.
smashing vegans. I respect that they love animals. But when you lead with the pain, they have this fear of what's going on with the animals. They
Mm-hmm.
feel the suffering of the animals. They don't want the animals to be hurt. So they lead often, not everyone does, of course, but many of them will lead
Mm-hmm.
with the pain, and they are so venomous to people who eat meat. They're so cruel with the way they, talk
Right.
to them and speak to them, and they say mean things, that they're actually leading with pain, and they're causing a division. Well, if they switched their mentality and led with love and said, listen, I understand that you want to eat animals, but let's look at the animal perspective and how can we make it better for the animal and lead with love, you would convince more people to eat less meat or completely get rid of meat altogether. So the vegan is just a simple example, but this goes for any and every example. This goes for conservatives. This goes for liberals. This goes for, people who are, a certain race or an ethnicity or culture. It goes in every single way.
Absolutely.
Because the moment you lead with love, you love and accept everyone. And I know I sound like a hippie right now, but it's just the basics.
No, it's reality. It is reality. And we all know that. The little simplest things can bring us together. And you can use a great example of music, right? Music can bring everybody together because when they start to take away all those things, like you said, their fear, oh, well, you like this music and that's just rotten. This is so and so and so, and it's got, dirty language and blah, blah, blah. Everybody has their time, throughout the years. And it's the same message over and over about what you can and cannot do, or this, you shouldn't be listening to this because of this or that. And you're right. They put the fear in everybody, and that fear, like you said, that pain. Oh, well, if I listen to this, then somebody's going to, talk about me, or they're going to start coming up with a list of things of why they cannot do what they want to do because they're the fear of what people are going to say. And that's painful, because nobody wants to.
And that's painful. Yes.
Right. They think it's the truth, but the reality is it's not the truth. They know who they are, but if you constantly are listening to somebody saying this to you over and over and over for a period of time, you literally start to believe that's really who you are. And like you said earlier, It takes that epiphany to make you understand who you really are, what you really are. How are you valuing yourself? How are you loving yourself? We all struggle with this because we live in a society that puts nothing but labels on every single individual. From the time we're brought into this world, we're told how we're supposed to talk, how we're supposed to walk, how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to dress. I mean, the list just keeps going on and on and on. And as soon as somebody stands out differently, you're a problem. You're not conforming to what society tells you you're supposed to be. So, and the harder part about this, we could have this conversation for hours because it's the reality that we see every day. It truly is the reality that we see and deal with every day. This constant fear from the time you turn the news on to the time you go to bed. That's all you hear. The world's going to come to end because somebody doesn't agree with somebody else. That is something that it drives me insane, and then they wonder why people have no respect. They wonder why kids don't want to hear and listen. You're supposed to be following, we're supposed to be looking up to certain people and learning from people, but how can you have that desire if they don't even know who they are? Yes.
Especially today with this fake, superficial, modified world. And people have forgotten. They forget who they are. And I tell my clients, you are who you were before you were influenced and impacted by life.
Oh, my goodness.
Which means, think about when you were like 3 years old, 2, 3, 4 years old, very young, how we were innocent at that age. And we would see things with curiosity and awe. And, when you see a little baby and someone scares it and it goes, and then all of a sudden it's quiet, and instead of crying, it laughs.
Right.
That's purity. That's amazing. And we have lost sight of that. Now everything we do is a collection of experiences and traumas that we react based off of.
Yes.
So that same situation, somebody scares us, we get angry or we cry or we get upset. We no longer laugh like a baby would laugh, even though we probably should.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all of our innocence has been truly taken away. And so you're constantly trying to rebuild that innocence that you had, like you said, as a kid. You didn't think twice about it. If it was funny to you, you laughed, not even truly even possibly understanding what you're laughing at. But we didn't take it as serious until you're being told that, oh, you shouldn't laugh at that, or you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't, that's wrong, and blah, blah, blah. Because, there we go. Got to be in conformity, got to be told that this isn't right, even though you are a human being and you have every right to think the way you think. Now, I agree that if you're harming somebody, you're hurting somebody, obviously that is not the right thing to do. But we all understand the difference of right and wrong. But there are going to be many people that live in the world that will continue to do wrong because it's all about them, period.
But you know what? You just said it's all about them. Think about people who commit crimes and do bad things. They're doing it because they are in pain.
Right.
So they're leading with pain. They either don't love themselves, they were abused, they have mental health issues, and generally it stems from a form of pain, right? I don't believe that, obviously if you have something wrong with your brain, that's different. But even if you have something wrong with your brain, you're in pain.
Right.
Hence the mental health issue. But most mental health issues stem from a trauma that someone hasn't been able to deal with, hence the pain, and then it causes a certain behavior. It could also be a nutritional deficiency. They're missing nutrients or missing things in their brain. But again, it goes back to pain. If you're missing something, your brain's not functioning properly, you're in pain and X, Y, and Z. It might not be physical pain, but it is a form of pain. And then that's where they lead. So any kind of violence or crime or things like that, you don't see someone who is living in bliss and laughing when they get scared and having a wonderful time going and doing violent things, horrible, cheating things. It just doesn't exist.
Right. Absolutely.
It's just a reaction to pain.
Well, like I said, we could keep talking, but we're going to shut this down because look, I know your bedtime is way past.
It's after midnight here, and I'm in Italy in a castle. It's like dark, and I can see mosquitoes flying around. Like, what is happening?
Exactly. But I before you, I have to let you go. I mean, I love having this conversation with you, Sandy. It has been great. But before you go, please tell everybody how they can reach out to you. If they would like to have some of your services, or just to have a conversation, so people can get up off their behinds and realize how great and how beautiful they truly are. Tell us how we can reach out to you.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Sandy in Focus. My LinkedIn is my name, Sandy Grigsby. If you connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message, not follow me, there's a difference. If you follow me, great, thank you. But if you connect, you find it, I hit it, find the connect button, connect with me and send me a message of where you heard this, and then you would like access to my course, I will send you my LinkedIn Learning course, which is how to create your online image for free for 24 hours.
Oh, okay. Love it.
You can also find me at sandyinfocus.com. So sandyinfocus.com is my website.
Well, I will definitely make sure that we have all the show note information in so that people don't have to remember this in their head. It'll be there for you to visualize if you read it, okay? Because, some people, I didn't see that. Well, you didn't obviously read it because we do make sure all this information is there. So, Sandy, I just love continuing having this conversation. We will have to get back together again to talk because there's so much more that we can communicate on and share with people. And, you have been a phenomenal guest. I really appreciate you taking time as late as it is over there in Italy to talk to me tonight. I love you for that. And again, I thank you for coming on the show with me.
Thank you, Kimberly, and have a wonderful time in the United States.
Thank you much. I need to be out there where you're at. Okay.
Yes, you do. In a castle in Italy.
Exactly.
All right, take care.
Again, thank you so much for your time. And hey, go lay down and we'll talk again soon. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Talk to you soon.
All right. Goodbye. All right. For everybody else, oh my goodness. is all I can say right now. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I know we're so far over our time, but I truly, truly hope that everyone has sat back and listened and learned from this and understand how your experiences can truly lift you up. How you can use those experiences as a part of your personal brand, whether good or bad or indifferent, there's opportunity everywhere. So, of course, this is going to lead me to ask you listeners, are you ready to uplift yourself in your business? Reach out to me at Kimberly at WSBILC@gmail.com and let's chat about your dreams and turn those dreams into goals. And of course, if you want more of your resource for success, monetary donations to support the podcast are now accepted on Cash App, PayPal, Good Pods Tip Jar, or go to the website at www.wsbilc.com. And of course, if you want to learn more on how to better leverage your business, ADP has identified 5 primary challenges: hiring, financing, access to growth resources, employee experience, and access to payroll and HR tools. And now, as I say, educating yourself on what's best for your business is free, so no more excuses. Contact our ADP rep, Ms. Antonia Nuez Samanigo. We'll provide all the contact information, of course, in the show notes. But of course, again, we would like to thank you all for listening to us tonight. We will be back next week with more amazing guests. Be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcast. But until then, good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.